Are you watching this video from the comfort of your home because you're terrified to step out and catch the coronavirus? Same. So make sure you stick around for our top 3 tips on what to do to plan events this year in light of COVID-19. Here we go. So as we're seeing events being canceled left, right, and center, of course, it's foolish to blame the event managers for this because events are economic engines and an event manager's job is not to be an epidemiologist. So their role is to provide an event that brings great value to its stakeholders and a good return on their investment. So the uncertainty and the fear surrounding coronavirus is a very, very real thing across the event industries. So at this point of shooting this video, we know that almost 60 countries around the world have put travel restrictions to be able to get in and out of their nations. And as you can imagine, it's hit the hardest for business events and weddings. All around the world, we're seeing business events and weddings just thrown up into chaos. People don't know whether they should postpone their events altogether or just cancel them. Now, did you know that almost 80% of wedding gowns are manufactured in China? And you know those little favors and accessories that you sometimes receive as a gift when you go to a wedding and all the bridal doodads and all the little things that you see in terms of decorations? So 75% of that is also manufactured in China. So it's had a huge impact worldwide on couples that are trying to order their materials and their things that they want for their wedding. Of course, we know that many of the factories have shut down in China. They're starting to reopen at this point, but shipping in and out is also negligible. So it's had an incredible impact right around the world. Wedding venues are under complete scrutiny as people try to decide if they really want to be in a small space crowded in with another 1,000 wedding guests. Destination weddings, as you can imagine, are being completely hijacked. Guests are not willing to travel out of the country to attend anybody's wedding, and there's a lot of travel restrictions in the first place. People are worried, if I go to Joe Blow's wedding, am I going to be able to get back into my country after that? Now, the general rule of thumb for almost all events is that it is more affordable to postpone it than to cancel it altogether. Canceling all of your vendors means that you will probably lose all of your money. If you postpone it and find another suitable date, you may lose the initial fee that you might have paid, or they may just absorb that as part of the vendor's costs, and at least you can plan it for some other time down the line. Now, there's many events that are going on around the world where the organizers, in fact, do not want to cancel. But because of the turn of events and because of their participants pulling out, it's kind of forcing them to do that. MWC, which is considered to be the world's biggest exhibition for the mobile industry in Barcelona, that's had to be canceled after Sony, Ericsson, Nokia, Amazon, Facebook, they all pulled out. Now across the world, almost 500 trade shows have been canceled to the tune of $16.5 billion in loss. Now, of course, one of the most important factors to consider if you're planning any event, especially this year, is your insurance. Now, in order to cancel an event without losing everything and to be able to recoup a little bit through insurance money, one of the key factors is that you'd have to be able to prove that it is impossible to run your event. Now, impossible is a very vague term because really what would make it impossible to run your event other than maybe a natural disaster that completely flattens the area where you are planning to have your event. But otherwise, people are struggling to be able to define and solidify this gray area of whether it's impossible. So with coronavirus and with these type of pandemics, you would basically have to show that almost 40 to 50 or 60 or 70% of your attendees or participants or speakers have completely pulled out of your event altogether, and therefore it's no longer financially feasible to even hold the event, which would almost make it impossible. Prior to the coronavirus outbreak, adding in an extension for communicable diseases was a natural part of many insurance policies for events. Now, smaller events where there might be a couple hundred people, those planners often wouldn't take those type of insurance because they would just make a hope and an assumption that something like that wouldn't happen. But certainly major large-scale event planners and managers and organizations have always taken insurance like this. But following this new coronavirus outbreak, the insurance company has completely taken such an option even off the table. Now, do you remember back in 2001 when there was the terrorist attacks in New York? So before that point, terrorism coverage was almost universally written into most insurance policies because there seemed to be such a low chance that such a thing would happen. But following those attacks, it was almost not available in any new policies that were taken, as the chances at that point seemed to be high. The same thing has happened with coronavirus. Many insurance policies already have pandemic insurance written into their fine print, but any new policies that you may be thinking about taking if you are planning an event in the future, you may have a very hard time trying to negotiate for that, as now it seems to be a known thing. A key factor here is that at this stage, we don't really even know what is the full extent to which coronavirus could continue, because till now we haven't been able to determine whether it will die off in another couple of weeks or a few months, or whether this is something that is expected to exacerbate and become an even larger problem. So because of that, insurance companies are really struggling to be able to add the fine print and to adjust their wording. And us as event managers, we may also have a very difficult time trying to negotiate based on these gray areas where there's a lot of unknowns. Now, the second key area where COVID-19 is having an impact across the event industry is with regards to guest management. So the idea of social distancing does not really seem feasible or practical for in-person events, since the definition of that is that you should have at least 3 meters between you and the next person. So when you're sitting at an event with a couple hundred or a couple thousand people and everyone is sitting next to each other and you're sharing communal spaces, the restrooms are public spaces, you might be serving refreshments, it all seems quite improbable that you'd be able to actually manage to keep people 3 to 4 meters away from each other during live events. And again, part of the problem at this point is that we don't really know if we've accurately understood how exactly coronavirus is transmitted. We do have some hypotheses and suggestions about how to prevent ourselves from catching it at this point, but there's nothing to say that down the line we might not find out that it's transmitted far more easily than what we're thinking right now, which is why even events with less than 100 people, small gatherings with just 25 people, there is still a lot of concern around that, and especially in the venues that are holding these gatherings. Now, the third thing to keep in mind is the takeoff of virtual events. Now, is a virtual event the same as a live in-person event? No, never. It never can be. Nothing ever replaces the face-to-face. But in these times of uncertainty, many major organizations are taking to virtual events, and they're turning more to their social media because the goal here is to continue to keep people connected. So even if people are not able to gather in person for meetings or for large events or to be able to learn something or to be entertained or inspired in some way, virtual events are a really good way at this time and age especially to be able to keep people connected, to keep people engaged, and to be able to transmit information in a timely manner. Now, in the midst of the entire disaster of the coronavirus hitting the event industry hard, virtual events have turned out to be a game changer because what they found is that major companies are turning towards social media and running virtual events to be able to remain connected with the people who are interested in their content. So what we are seeing is that people, in fact, are quite willing and able to register for virtual events because it means that they don't have to fly anywhere, they don't have to worry about travel restrictions, they don't have to book a hotel at the event location, they don't have to worry about childcare, they don't have to take days off work, and they don't have to pay an exorbitant ticket. So for a fraction of the original ticket price, people can sign up for virtual events, and anywhere they have access to Wi-Fi, which could be in their own home or at a coffee shop, they can still gain access to the content and be a part of that event. Now, this virus outbreak has been one of the worst wake-up calls for the event industry, and it's given light to event managers taking new ways to look at how to run their events. And that means including technology as an integral part of being able to connect with its participants. And don't forget, this year we are keeping our eyes peeled on 2 very major international events that are supposed to happen. The Dubai Expo in October and the 2020 Summer Olympics in July in Tokyo. So it remains to be seen how this pandemic will play out by then, but let's hope for the best. So there you have it, everybody. 3 things to keep in mind as you're going ahead and planning your events for this year. Now, if you want to keep track of some of the events that are happening all around the world to see if they're being rescheduled or postponed, you can look for the link in the description below, and that'll take you to a website that's keeping track of all of this stuff in real time. So if you like this video, don't forget to share it with one of your friends so that they can like it too. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe to our channel. So until we see you next time, make every moment a great moment.